What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another animal room tour. In case you're new to the channel, my name's Tanner and I keep a lot of different animals. I have fish, reptiles, amphibians, all kinds of stuff, and I'm going to update you on all of them in this video. Usually I start over here in my storage area and we'll take a quick look at everything that I have going on over here. Up top here we have supplies for making vivariums. I have some stones, different types of wood like spider wood, mopany wood, and even some cork bark. And then over here I have containers for mixing up crested gecko food, things like that. And then under here I have a colony of dubia roaches. On the next shelf down we have my moss propagation bins. These two are terrestrial mosses, so I have pillow moss, fern moss, hypnomoss, various types in these. And then over in here I keep my aquatic moss, so I have pretty much just Java moss in here. I also have a few baby Java ferns, and I'll put other aquatic plants in there as well, but that's predominantly what I use this one for. On the next shelf down we have all of my plant propagation bins. Much like the moss ones that you saw up top, I basically just grow out the plants in here, take what I need, put them back, and it's basically like a mini greenhouse. In the past I used aquariums, but these are actually much easier to use because they're really lightweight. If I need to clean them, I can just take them off, take all the plants out, spray it out, put it back, put all the plants back in. It makes it really easy. A lot easier than using a glass aquarium, albeit a 10-gallon aquarium isn't that heavy, but it's just a lot easier to use something like this, and it's cheaper too. Moving down once more, we have various isopod colonies. They're mainly ones that I captured locally, and I'm just kind of growing them out, experimenting with them a little bit, and I'm having a really good time doing it. I'll show you some up on the screen. They're doing really well. I also have some millipedes, more isopods here. These are the ones that I usually use for my vivariums. And I have some colonies of springtails over here. Now, it probably looks like a lot more than is actually there. There's probably only 5 to 10 active colonies. Finally, onto the bottom area here. It's a total mess right now, and it's basically just backup storage. On this shelf, though, I have all of my containers for making terrariums, so you know that stash is always growing, but it's being depleted as well because I'm constantly making terrariums, so it's kind of like a give and take type of thing. And then, as I said, all storage down here. That's going to change very soon, and we'll talk about more of that later in the video. But let's move into the actual room. Back in the main room here, and we'll start on this side and work our way around. Back here we have my king snake Houdini and what used to be the 125-gallon vivarium, and up front here we have a little project that I'm working on. I'll show you something about it real quick and then we'll talk about Houdini. What I have in this 40-gallon breeder here is a paludarium. Now it has water in it, it has land area, has a water feature waterfall over there, and long story short, my fire-bellied toads are going to be going in here because they used to be in the 125-gallon that now houses Dean. They're momentarily being held in a 10-gallon, which you'll see in a little bit, but I'm scaping this still, planting it, all of that stuff. Probably do the video for it here in about a month, maybe a month and a half. And it's coming along, so you guys will see this in the near future. Once again, back in here we have my 12-year-old blotched king snake Houdini. He's doing very well. He seems to like his new enclosure. He doesn't really stretch out the length of it like I thought he may have, but he definitely uses all of the space. He'll hang out over here when he needs to get a drink, likes climbing up his stick, hangs out over here, basks up on top of his log over here. So overall, he seems to definitely be enjoying it. He's doing very well, and there's not really much else I could say about him, to be honest. Moving to the right, we have my North American native tank here. I have several green sunfish, I have 2 brown bullhead catfish, and then I also have a few dollar sunfish, as well as a southern long-ear sunfish. Everybody's doing really well. Other than Tim, everybody's been growing pretty steadily as well. He was already pretty much that big when I put everyone in this tank, but by and large, everything's doing well. Obviously, the scape isn't as nice as whenever I first set it up because they've kind of just been doing whatever they want with it. And this aquarium's actually going to be coming down in a few weeks, so I haven't really done anything to it, but overall it's doing well. All of the fish are doing quite well, and the catfish have probably tripled or quadrupled in size. They're so big now, and it's really cool. Moving on to the right once more, we have the 40-gallon rack that I was telling you about. The paludarium's probably going to go on the top or middle shelf. I'm not really too sure yet. But of course, I have 2 other 40 gallons here. One of them is going to house my African Bullfrog Samson. I'll show you him in a moment. And then the other one's going to house my American Bullfrog MJ, and I'll also show you him in a moment. But you'll notice on the shelf here I have a little 10-gallon tank here, and this is my Fire-Bellied Toad setup. Moving down here we have my Fire-Bellied Toads. Overall they're doing really well. We don't really have anything special going on with this setup, as you can see, but they're doing well. It just has a pothos in it, and for some reason they're really calm when handled. They don't mind it at all, which is kind of cool, but you just gotta make sure that you wash your hands after you handle these guys because they are poisonous. But as I said, they're good in that paludarium. I think that they'll enjoy the water feature a lot. And since I only have 3 of them, I'm probably going to get a few more. I might top it off at 5. That just seems like a good number to me. And I don't really want to overcrowd it. Obviously, 5 in a 40-gallon is definitely sufficient, but I just want these guys to have a good amount of space. And really, it's just about showcasing them in a cool environment, not necessarily getting as many as we can in an environment. But as I said, doing well. I like these guys, even though they are really calm and they're just a striking looking animal, and their characters for sure. And now we have Samson here, the African Bullfrog. Should be mentioned that I did wash my hands in between handlings here, so just keep that in mind. I guess he wants to dig himself a hole, but he's our resident thick boy. I'm not sure how big he was whenever you saw him last, but he is definitely about the size of my fist now, and he's continually growing. Every time that I go to feed him, I'm like, man, he's grown since the last time I fed him, and he's primarily eating dubia roaches and mice, frozen thawed that is, and then I also feed him crickets from time to time, but he's primarily eating both of those. Overall, doing really well, and I can't wait to do something cool for him in the 40-gallon setup. I think that I'll make him some sort of paludarium or something like that. Maybe like 50-50, 50 land, 50 water area, because he definitely likes to dig and do that sort of thing. But he also enjoys his water bowl, which it's not dirty right now. Just has a bunch of cocoa fiber in it because he was just hanging out in there. But overall, doing really well, and that's Samson. Moving over again, we have my vivarium rack here. Underneath, I have a 180-gallon vivarium up top here. I have 2 60-gallon vivariums, and we'll start up top here. Up top here, we have my Crested Geckos. There's 1 in each enclosure. We got the female Delilah over here, and then we got Henry, the male, over here. They're in custom-built plywood enclosures, which measure 24 by 24 by 32, so they're roughly about 60 gallons each. And they're all live planted, bioactive, all that good stuff. And overall, the enclosure's doing really well. The plants are growing steadily, showing nice colors, and the geckos definitely seem to enjoy the setups. Now, Henry's a little bit more active than Delilah is. He's usually out in the day and in the night, whereas Delilah's kind of just out at night, and that's how it always was. But really, you can't expect to see them at any given point of the day because there's so much foliage that they hide really well, and that's how I want it because the geckos can feel secure. As I said, these are bioactive, and they were at one point teeming with isopods, but once I put the Crested Geckos in here, it would seem that they preyed upon them because I don't really see them that much anymore. So I'm going to probably have to be periodically stocking this with isopods until the population is just so dense that they can't keep up with it. If everything keeps going how it is though, I think these enclosures are going to do really well, and I can't wait to see them filled in with even more plant life so that way the geckos just feel even more at home. Moving down, we have my relatively new 180-gallon bioactive live planted vivarium, and yes, the doors are closed. That was my biggest beef with the 125-gallon over there. It was just really hard to look at and enjoy because the glass was really dirty and stuff. Mind you, I actually need to clean this glass. It's a little bit dirty, there's some spots here, but for the most part it is clean. And the vivarium itself is doing quite well. The plants are bounced back from that issue we had in the beginning. Some have died off pretty much completely, but they're coming back. Like I have a maidenhair fern here, which I didn't even show in the video because it pretty much died off completely, but it's showing some new growth here, so maybe in time it will come back and we'll have a maidenhair fern in here again. But overall, it's doing well. Nice plant growth. The moss is really taking off. It's stuck onto everything. And a lot of people wondered, what am I putting in here? Now, I gave some hints in the video. A lot of people thought that it was a type of gecko because I mentioned about how to make a background more gecko friendly. But there was something that I said that really kind of only suits one animal. I'm sure there's others that would like it, but really this was the dead giveaway. I said that I wanted to keep the humidity at, and that I was keeping it at around 100%. It will fluctuate anywhere from like 90 to 100%, but it's most of the time at 100%. It's just when I open it up, it drops for a little bit. But that said, you guys know I'm keeping some dart frogs in here. You guys have been wanting to see it for a while. I've been wanting to keep them for a while, and that was actually with the 10-gallon vertical vivariums were originally for. They're no longer around. I took them down, and they actually have been combined into that paludarium that you saw earlier, and I actually put some plants from those into here, so you're not going to see those in the tour because they no longer exist. But the plan with those was to get dart frogs. I eventually changed my mind, and I was like, alright, I want to do something bigger. So I'm getting dart frogs for in here. Now, the ones I want to get, they're kind of common, and you probably have seen them a lot, but they're really cool, and I like them personally. They're one of my favorites. But if you have any suggestions on what type of dart frog you would like to see in here, let me know, and I might go with your suggestions. I'm not going to do any cohabitation. It's just going to be a species tank, only one type of frog. I'm not going to get tree frogs as well, or gnolls as well, or anything like that. Only dart frogs, a single species of dart frogs is going in here. So keep that in mind when you give me some suggestions. Next up, we'll move on to what is always one of my favorite aquariums, and that is my goldfish setup. In here I have 9 comet or common goldfish. These are the kind that are typically sold as feeder fish, and they're the type of goldfish that I personally like. I like the more traditional body shape. I'm not really too into the compact goldfish or anything like that. I just like watching them swim. They have great personalities, and they're great fish. I think they often have the stigma as being super dirty and hard to keep. Now, obviously this tank is overstocked and it's way too small for them, but even still, I'm able to keep it very clean, and I attribute that to really just feeding what they eat. I'm not overfeeding. I'm not underfeeding either, though, and I keep the water quality pretty clean. I do roughly about an 80% water change once a week, and they seem to do pretty well with it. You may be wondering, what is my long-term goal for these? Like, am I just going to keep them in this 55-gallon tank? And definitely not. That's not what I wanted to do. And really, I didn't want to keep them in here as long as I did. But what I'm about to say, like, I knew it was coming up, so I didn't want to invest all this money to put them in a different setup and move them, all this stuff. So basically, my fiance and I just purchased our first home. And one of the first orders of business is to build a pond outside for these guys. I have all the supplies ready to go. It's going to be about 700 gallons, and I would rather do it outside because I feel like they would like being outside better than inside. They can overwinter, everything like that, so it'll be more like what they're used to in nature. And I think it's just going to be a really cool thing. Now, I'm going to do a video series on all that, teach you guys how I build the pond. And it's going to be really cool. We actually close on the 30th, so you guys can be expecting to see that pretty soon. Next up is my 150-gallon community freshwater tank. And I don't know how long it's been since you guys have seen this, so I don't know if I've actually talked about all of the fish that I have in here nowadays. But I have 16 giant danios. We've got 8 silver dollars, several types of gourami. I have the snakeskin gourami, as well as the pearl gourami, and I don't know if you remember, I had the baby sunfish. They were super small. I put them in here so I could get them to grow out easier because it's a warmer temperature, so kind of speed up their metabolism a little bit. This guy is just about ready to go into the other setup, but I have 2 more that are way too small for the other one. And if you also remember, I had my betas tank. I talked about it before. He passed away, unfortunately, because of some strange occurrence with the water, but I also had the Cory catfish in there. They all live in here now. And so pretty much I condensed most of my aquariums and put everything together in this aquarium. And it's doing really well. All the fish are doing well. You may be wondering why it's a little bit cloudy. I just did a big water change, so it's a little bit cloudy after the water change. But all the fish are doing really well. It's a very enjoyable one to watch just because of the high energy from the giant danios. And again, it's a common theme with a lot of my animals. They are a very common fish to have, like they're cheap, but I really like them. I think they're enjoyable. They have a nice color pattern to them, and they're just really cool to watch. Very vicious eaters, so always fun to watch them. Now, if you remember, I did have 2 African clawed frogs in here. Unfortunately, they passed away. Whenever I first set up this aquarium, I had some issues going on with the heater, and the aquarium got way too hot. It was about 85 degrees, and I didn't realize it until I came downstairs and it just stunk, and I found one of the frogs floating up at the top dead. And then I fixed the issue, and then it happened again about a day or 2 later, and unfortunately both of the frogs passed away because of that. Lucky for me, the fish didn't have any issues with it. Like, they had no issues with that temperature. They were all still living, but unfortunately I lost the frog, so probably won't be replacing them because I got all these giant Danios now. But overall, it's doing really well. I feel like I need a showpiece fish for this setup though. Like, everything's kind of gray, they have specks of color in them, but I need like one fish that really just stands out in here, and at that point I feel like the stocking will be complete. I like how it's stocked right now, so if you guys have any ideas on what would be a good showpiece fish for this aquarium, definitely let me know because I am out of ideas for it. And moving on to the terrarium in an aquarium. Overall, I'd say the aquarium is doing really well. The plants are growing in quite nicely. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of an issue with some string algae. You could still see, especially on this water wisteria up top here, there's a lot of it. It seems to be from the flow of the water, so I'm going to have to do some more to combat that. But I took down the photo period by 2 hours. I've been doing really large water changes, and it helped out significantly. But I also wanted to do another thing, which was I went and got 3 Amano shrimp, and they've been working hard to clean up the algae for sure. So it's definitely not as bad as it was, but it's still present. So probably I'm going to have to mess around with the fertilizer schedule a little bit. There's just some stuff that I got to do to really dial in on it and maybe just remove these plants entirely that are kind of infested with it. But I don't know, we'll see what happens. The terrarium, on the other hand, isn't really doing too well. I think that I'm having some issues with the condensation cycle, and a lot of you guys had commented about that down in the comments actually, but I wanted to experiment with it, see what happens, and I might have to either redo the terrarium or scrap the terrarium entirely, in which case I'd probably take the lid off of the jar and then actually do an extension of the planted aquarium inside of the jar, but I like the idea of having it as a terrarium, so I might just have to experiment a little bit more to get that fine-tuned. But overall, I'm really liking this. The growth is great, and I just, it needs some maintenance. But again, since I'm moving here shortly, I haven't really been putting my all into really any of these setups. I've just been doing the bare minimum work to keep all of my animals happy and healthy. So I think once I get moved in and everything, I'll really just kind of dial in on this aquarium and get it looking super pristine. And last but not least, over here we have MJ, my American Bullfrog. He's doing pretty much just as well as he ever has been. He's eating his roaches. He's been croaking as of late because of the weather, and I'm really just very excited to get him into a larger enclosure. As I said, he's moving into a 40 breeder, and this is pretty much what he's been living in for most of his life. Again, like the goldfish, I don't really like the idea that I've kept him in an enclosure this small for as long as I have, but it's what he's used to, so I can't really say much about it. But he's moving into a larger setup. I'm going to make it all naturalistic, live planted, everything like that. So definitely stay tuned for that because, again, that's something that we're going to do shortly whenever we move into the house, because I'm not going to move this setup and then move him again. I'm just going to set up the 40 gallon there and then move him from here into there. And there you have it, the final update or look at my current animal room. Of course, it was a little bit of a quick and dirty update. I didn't really get as in-depth with stuff as I typically like to do. When I do the animal rooms, I like them to be like an hour-long video. I just talk about every little thing about every setup, but I just didn't have the time to do that in this one, unfortunately. So next time we'll do it for sure whenever we get the new animal room going. And being able to move and have a more dedicated space for myself, it's going to be really great for this channel. I'm going to be able to make content more efficiently. I'm going to be able to make more content. That's probably when I'm going to be uploading more frequently. Don't quote me on that, but I do want to start uploading 2-3 times a week. It's just a matter of I can't really make content that efficiently, and I'll talk about that more in other videos. But just trust me when I say it's hard to do what I do in my current situation. So moving's gonna be really cool. Got a lot of crazy projects coming up. We got the pond, all of the 40-gallon setups that you're gonna see that paludarium. It's actually technically gonna be 3 40-gallon paludariums. So you know, a lot of you guys have been hounding me for paludariums. So there you go. There's 3 of them coming. As for the nano paludarium, maybe we'll finish it someday. I don't know. It's still just sitting aside. But enough on that. I got to get going. Got to edit this video. I got a lot of stuff going on. So thank you so much for sticking through to this. If you stuck through till the end, let me know down below. Also, whenever I do move my setups, let me know what you guys want to see. Like, is there something that maybe you have to move someday and you're not sure how you would do it? Like, I'm sure a lot of you guys are curious, how's he going to move these big tanks? Don't worry about it. I got you. I'm going to record that part. But just let me know, what is something within that process that you guys might benefit from that I could show you? So, again, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and peace.